Hey everyone, welcome to this after church tea time on this sermon about healing the masculine and feminine energies. We're really glad to be here with you. I'm accompanied by Lisi and Kanisha today. And yeah, we're gonna talk about the Sunday service and this sermon by Laurentiu and Alexandra. And I think it was pretty healing. As it was mentioned in the title. And there's probably a lot to unpack. And yeah, I'm just gonna start this discussion off by asking you ladies, how do you feel right now, and how did you feel about the sermon?
I deeply enjoyed the sermon. I ended up having to pull out my mirror journal because there was a lot for me to mirror through as Alex was talking, particularly on the space where she had mentioned where she was overly giving in order to be loved. And I had recognized that that was something that I was healing with in my union, where I would overly give to my masculine in order to be loved or receive love. And that is around the time when we started to become more distant, where there was just a lot of like distance and space. And at first, I felt like I was doing something wrong. It was just that there was just an unbalance of energies, and I wasn't actually allowing myself to receive my divine masculine due to just fear of like being hurt in that space. And like Lau had talked about, just past traumas in that space. And so I would overly give in that space in order to be able to feel safe. But really, that does not work in your twin flame union. And so that is something that I'm still currently allowing myself to heal and just be compassionate with myself as I move through that, and allowing myself to really kind of just sit back and receive and relax, which can be a little uncomfortable when that is not something that you're used to. So that for me is a place where I'm currently just healing and really being compassionate with myself and learning that it's okay and safe for me to receive as the divine feminine, and to really just receive God in that space is really what it is. It's allowing deeper intimacy with God when you trust the process and allow yourself to just receive from Him and then give in the places that He asks you to give as the divine feminine.
I right there with you, Kanisha. Like that was the part that stood out to me the most too. And just how most of my relationships with the divine masculine have the same pattern over and over again. Actually, starting with my dad, of running after him as a little girl, like with something that I had made to give him, so that I would make him love me, or like get him to love me, or get his attention, that I was so deeply craving that at the time I didn't know how to give myself. And then when I think at some age I was like, obviously my dad's not going to do that. So the pattern still continued with other men. And I constantly found myself feeling depleted. Like you said, I felt like I was doing something wrong. I felt like I was unlovable. Um, and I didn't know how to interact with the masculine. I was like, well, this is all I've known. It's not working. I felt a lot of anxiety for such a long time with just resting and not giving, because what I experienced was like I would not give, but then I wasn't having any form of interaction in my life at all. And so I was like, what is the up? So that was all like mostly prior to Jeff and Shaleia, although I'm catching myself in some patterns now. And I'm really glad that Lawrence and Alexandra linked it in with trauma healing, because I realized like the root of this pattern, at least for me and perhaps for other feminines, is in trauma, is in for me, it's realizing that me wanting to get the attention of someone who actually doesn't or didn't love me and didn't claim me was actually really unhealthy. And I think I like I knew in my heart that my dad didn't love me really. So I was trying to like overcompensate by giving. Like maybe he'll finally see that I'm valuable and then he'll love me. That it's not true. But at the time I didn't know. So it was such a beautiful sermon. And it was just such a good opportune moment to go into that sort of topic. And I recently watched a TFAS class where Shaleia was talking about how, even her at a young age was like taught to give her feminine energy from a young age. And yeah, it's just really healing to talk about it and bring it up and learn how to how to really, you know, what it means to be in our feminine.
I definitely relate to that, and I also relate to, you know, just like the upbringing of having been taught to give your feminine energy over and over again. And I think it's very important like to go back to childhood and understand where it comes from. And for me, like it comes from like my mom and my society. This is a society that works around like the mother, and and the mother gives everything. She's a supporter of everyone, so she's always giving. And my mom, even though she's not like exactly in that culture, um, she was always taught like, well, as most like divine feminines on earth right now, to give to attract men, and then to give again when she had a household. And so I feel like in my childhood home, I would always feel like that draining energy, that depleted energy. And I didn't understand as well why I was feeling so tired all the time and I needed to rest. And I think like that's exactly what has been coming up for the past few days for me. Because like sometimes you just gotta sit and be with God, and when it doesn't like call you to give in a certain space, you just gotta listen to that. But that's not something that I was taught. And so yeah, I feel the truth of that in my heart, and I feel the healing there coming for me. And I was always like, in the past few months, I was even watching my mom and saying like it feels like unnatural the way like she interacts in a relationship. And I thank her for like making me realize that, because like I feel like it's a big healing for me, family healing, and just all around healing about relationships, which is what we learn here as humanists. And yeah, I do feel like a lot of people may have deep trauma relating to childhood that are linked to the problems with giving and receiving in a balanced way. And so, yeah, I feel like we're still going deeper into like understanding how to give and how to receive, and how to relate to each other. Proof is that, like, I think the healing that definitely I experienced at the beginning of the year about like sexual energies, and especially Shaleia about like her divine feminine energy, proves that we're still going deeper into like discovering what is the divine way to actually relate to each other. And yeah, it's just how I feel about that. Yeah. What did you want to share? Anything else about like the sermon that really like caught your attention or react to what I was saying?
Yeah, I guess another thing that Alexandra shared was, I guess, for me, all those parts that stood out are like about like trauma healing because I'm focusing on that right now in my life. But um, Alexandra said, you know, she would gaslight herself and tell herself that something didn't really actually happen, and kind of deny her experience of what it was. And so um, when I started, you know, feeling into that, I started linking that with like my pattern of overgiving, where in giving as much as I did, it was a form of numbing out. So I didn't have to like actually be with my feelings or recognize that I had a traumatic experience. And it ended up burying a lot of my experience down, denying myself, you know, what happened in my life, and then would not want to, you know, it's not that I didn't want to see, is that I couldn't see what was actually happening in my pattern of overgiving. Like I was blind to it because I was just immersed in this denial and blindness from, you know, denying my early experiences as a child. And it feels really good to become aware, though. I do want to say, like identifying the issue is good, but it feels good to finally like honor my experience and not gaslight myself, and like say, okay, I had this experience, and feel safe to say that. um it's a form of connecting with myself, and in doing that, I'm not in my overgiving pattern. Like I'm not using that as an escape to escape myself, because I'm finally coming into a sense of union within myself in terms of my experience. I'm able to see relationships for how they really are. One thing that I've actually shared this with people, this analogy of, like, I know people who share a lot, and then the person that they're sharing with doesn't share back, and it's kind of like if you're in a tennis match, you're hitting the ball over the net over and over, and your opponent's kind of like, whoa, 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 hang on. um and then eventually the opponent kind of walks away because you're just hitting ball after ball at them, and it's, you know, I've been that person. um because there's like there was an unwillingness to see, like I just was in this state. And Alexandra says, you know, it's like her divine masculine can't approach her because it's a leaking of your energy. It's like you're unapproachable, like if you're just, so I really started to become aware of that. And I'm still kind of like feeling like an infant, because I don't haven't had practice with how to be. Like I've had a lot of practice with how not to be, and it's just new territory for me, I think.
Yeah, as she was talking about how Lao was having a block about giving to her, I started journaling and like wrote down in the mirror exercise, like, I'm upset that my divine masculine freely gives to everyone else except for me, is the feeling that was coming up. And then when I mirrored it, I was like, well, I can see how I freely give love to everyone else because I desire for them to not feel deprived of love the way that I feel. And so I wasn't freely giving to myself in those places where I felt deprived of love. I was trying to make sure everyone else didn't feel that way because of the way I felt within. And I was like, wow, that's a new awareness and realization for me. And as I sat with that space, I realized that it was because I was seeking it from everyone else instead of just going to God and receiving that from God. And that was a deep relief for me to like come to that realization of I can see where I'm leaking my energy finally. Instead of continuing that pattern, I can now heal it and just give all of that love to myself. And realizing that I'm going to receive from my twin flame when I choose to receive from God first, because my relationship with my twin flame is a direct relationship of or direct reflection of my relationship with God. And so I was very grateful to have that awareness come to like light when she was speaking about that. Because in truth, like your divine masculine wants to give to you. That's his desire, is to give to you. And so when we're in that space of not realizing that we're leaking our union's energy in the way that we have been, and being able to really heal that pattern, it allows us to protect that with our union and with God, really.
Yeah, the way it manifests for me right now is that I'm just like forced to rest in a sense. Like I have like a really good balance where I work, but sometimes God just calls me to like rest. And today was one of those days. I feel like it's a day of like trauma healing for a lot of people. But yeah, I feel like in always taking action, I was actually not seeing that I was seeking something in the external to make me feel good and energized and supported and safe, because like being supported and safe is like really important for me. And yeah, these actions were just like distracting me from the deep emotions, but also like very subtle emotions that I was missing basically inside myself. And yeah, they were so subtle or so ingrained in my way of functioning or my upbringing that I didn't see them. And I'm just realizing now, after like a very good coaching session with Michaela, that sometimes I can sit and say, like, why am I feeling this way? Do I need to do something to feel another way, or just rest or sleep? And then I realized, like, oh, actually there was an upset there. So I just like, as Kanisha said, like I put out my journal and I just start to write and to mirror until I feel good. Yeah, because like you can't avoid the healing for other. And in that sense, I also feel the same way as Kanisha, where I was feeling like I was actually blocking receiving love. And for me, like it stems from sometimes I would receive love, but it was not like unconditional. It came with conditions and it came with doing something for someone else. Otherwise, I would get like abused in this space or yelled at or something like that. So yeah, it's just like I'm realizing that just now today. So it just feels like we need to be like very compassionate with ourselves and just like accepting that we're kind of babies, infants in this space, like Lisi said, and just say, all right, like one step at a time. Like we don't know how to give and receive in the spaces, so we'll just go there one step at a time and just heal it. And yeah, the one thing I also like realized from the sermon is how much, yeah, basically it impacts your union, the way like you can leak energy by overgiving or having blocks to receiving. And then like I felt like Laurentius' examples were pretty good because I didn't understand how much it could impact like the union when I was behaving a certain way. And so yeah, it's just like I feel like it's, as they said, just being aware that when the masculine gives into the union, is giving into an us, not like just one person, not just him or not just me. It's like us, and it's our well of energy, and it's our balance, and it's that balance that keeps our union and keeps the energy flowing there. And so I think that's also why we say like God first, then yourself, then your twin flame, because like you have to give priority to this before you even consider giving to someone or something else. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah, I think in society, and I know growing up in like a military household, that if you weren't doing something or giving in some way, we were considered lazy and not an asset to the family. And so that was something that I've really had to heal in that space of recognizing that my inner work is the work and that it is actually like it's really what it is. It's having to go within first and doing the inner work and then following the guided action that comes after that, instead of just trying to like make things happen on the outside and then feeling like nothing's happening. I actually was experiencing this last week, where like I knew that I wanted to put on a workshop and I wasn't for sure what that was going to be. And so I went within, I asked God what he needed from me here and how he wanted me to serve. And I created the workshop, I put it out, and like the first 12 hours, no one like booked in this workshop. So I'm thinking I have to like go do something to make this happen. And instead, I went within and I just loved myself here and realized the value that I had, and I surrendered it to God. And then I felt guided to take a nap. And I was like, okay, well, I guess like I'm just supposed to rest here. So I'm just gonna take a nap. I napped. And when I woke up, I had two people who had booked. And then I was like, okay, perfect. And then I decided I was gonna paint. And I did some other things that really allowed me to just be in my divine feminine energy. And those next few hours, people just started like trickling in. And so I was like, I could have stressed and freaked out and think that I had done something wrong or I wasn't doing enough. But instead, I just went to God for what I needed and received him. And he was like, I just need you to relax. Let me do the rest. You did what you needed to do. Let me do the rest. And he just asked me to kind of just go have fun and enjoy myself. That is complete opposite of how we were taught. And that required a lot of trust on my end, to just trust that God had me in that space and that I could just surrender and just be. And that is a really big lesson for me in this journey, is how to just be and allow things to unfold organically and naturally and in the way that God needs it to, instead of forcing things to happen. And that was something like growing up, I was always told, like, if you want something to happen, you have to go out and do it. You have to go and make it happen. You have to do all these things for it to happen. In truth, there are things that you will have to do to produce it. But once you've done what you needed to do, the rest is just complete surrender and give it to God. And Jeff touched on this today in class, where like, um, if you want an apple tree, you have to like plant the seed and then you just have to water the soil. And all you have to do is just continue to water the soil. Like, you can't make the tree come up. You can't go and put the apples on there. You have to just do the basic and in truth, just love it. And that's it. And then the rest will be taken care of and you will receive the fruits from that labor. But you have to be consistent in just loving that space and surrendering and trusting that it's going to grow. And the more that I've learned to kind of just relax into that, the more things flow and the more abundance comes into my reality, instead of feeling like I have to go out there and grind and hustle and make things happen. That's another place where I was really leaking my energy, was feeling like I had to go out and force things to happen in order to be taken care of.
I think the
It totally.
hustle. Sorry. Yeah, I think like what we learn as this is like the contrary of hustle culture. Like, it doesn't mean that we don't work, because we work a lot, but it's so different, even like on a spiritual level.
Yeah, I was just gonna relate to Kanisha. I've made so many sales when I've been sleeping.
Yeah. What I do now, I'm just like, oh, it's time to go take a nap. If I want to make money, I gotta go sleep.
Yeah, yep. And like, on the outside, it might look like I was like in some sort of hustle mode, like, let's, hook, line, and sinker. Let's like make some sales. And I think there was that like giving energy that I did, but at the end of the day, like, I don't receive anything until I choose to receive. And that's why I think like the magic happens when I go to sleep. I've been needing a lot more sleep lately. Wow. It's been really good. But for a while, I wasn't sleeping too much. So I don't know. Getting off topic, but kind of like sleeping and surrender kind of go hand in hand, I think. Falling asleep
Yeah.
is like a surrender.
As the divine feminine, I think that is like one of the things that is required is just a lot of rest, because we do a lot of inner work. We hold the vision for our union, and that requires us to really go within. Of like, if I understand correctly, like the divine feminine goes within, the divine masculine takes action on the outside. And so like having to really relax into that space. And one of the things that I sit with that God keeps bringing back to me is like in classes for like TFAS, where Jeff does a lot of the talking and Shaleia is sitting there, and he even mentions in one class that looks like she's just sitting here. She does nothing. All she does is just like sit here. And in truth, she's holding space for the entire union and allowing, like, he's moving through because she's holding that space for them. And that really helped me be able to relax even deeper in understanding like how I provide for my union, how I actually give to my union by holding space and feeling my feelings as my divine masculine is doing what he's doing. And that was it was very loving to see that, and very supportive, because in most cultures you see the divine feminine doing all of the work, having to take care of the children, take care of the house and all of that stuff, which is absolutely part of it, but it's like how to do it from a place of peace instead of a place of obligation.
Yeah. And as Lo said when he gave the example of his parents, it's just like how to do it from a place of balance and union. Because like if your divine masculine is not like giving to the union, which is like his function, obviously like you're gonna feel depleted and you're gonna give and give and give, and you'll just feel like you have no rest, or you're not replenished, you're not overflowing, and you're not in your creative space. So it's both something about like taking rest like on the external, but also having that energetical, I feel like, balance on the inside, where you can ensure that there is this cycle, healthy cycle between you and your twin flame, where there is, and between you both and God, where there is that healthy giving and receiving. Yeah. I think I wanted to say something else, but I forgot.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I'm still releasing is like just the misaligned belief that if I relax, I won't receive. If I relax, I won't get the things that I desire because I am not doing anything. And so, but it's really like if you sit with it, I was just working with some clients about how like relaxing is receiving, and that's something that we have to really switch into, that understanding that as we really allow ourselves to come back to our center, come back to our natural state of being, then that is where we're actually able to meet God, meet our twin flame, is in that place of peace and love. And it's just letting go of that belief. If we hold on to the belief that if we relax we won't receive, then I believe that that's what we're gonna like experience in our reality, because it's the misaligned belief that we're holding on to, and that is what's going to have to be mirrored back to us. But as we recognize the truth here, then we're able to really receive all of our abundance in that space.
Mm-hmm. I do feel that in some places in my consciousness, and it hasn't sunken in yet, or it is like sinking in, that I don't actually have to do anything else to have my good. Like I received it. I am where I need to be right now. And I feel that's because I had so many like soulmates or first twin flame experience where, or even like family and life purpose experience where I needed to be someone else and build up and give and give and give and always reach for that next good thing to prove that I deserved it. That I I just don't realize sometimes that, okay, this is where I need to be. I can relax. Like I'm still working. I'm still like working towards like my dreams and solidifying my union and things like that. But it doesn't mean that I'm not exactly where I need to be. And I think it's tied up to like feeling like you don't deserve rest or self-care as a divine feminine, as long as you have not reached a certain goal in life or something. But there is no end to this. Like when you reach that like career or you have that husband, you will want something else. And so you need to rest in these periods, because like otherwise you'll always feel like you're not worthy of being rested or of relaxing or of stopping and just like feeling and being with God, you know.
Yeah, I think one of the things that came to mind for me was that if I'm not open to really like receiving God and my own love in that space, then it's impossible for me to receive my divine masculine when he does try to give to me. That was something that I had to really sit with, where there was a period of time where I wasn't focused on anyone or anything. I was just focused on my relationship with God and myself. And then there was like a weekend where my divine masculine was just like giving. And there was a part of me that was like, wait, this isn't safe. Like something bad's going to happen if I receive all of this love here, or like the other shoe is going to drop. And he actually disciplined me in that space of like, Kanisha, just relax. Like it's okay to be loved here. Just relax. And I was just like, okay. And so I had to recognize that, because I had so much trauma in that space, even though I desire to receive and I desire to be loved in this space, then unless I heal it, I can't actually do it. I will continue self-sabotaging in that space until I 100% understand that that is actually my purpose, is to receive and to be loved, and that I am loved whether or not I'm doing anything. Like that's just not my natural state of being, is I am loved. And as I deepen that understanding, there's times where I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something and I'm just like, no, just love yourself here. That's all you have to do, is just love, and everything else is taken care of. And it almost seems like it's too simple, but that's really the beauty of it, is that it's actually meant to be really simple and really easy. And we don't have to continue living from this place of trauma. We can actually heal in this space. And that's the beauty of this work, is that we can learn how to just love and be loved.
I feel like everyone should have like reminders of this, like just be, just feel, and then take action when you feel guided.
Mhm.
Because like I think we're prone to forget it, but I guess it's okay. Like we don't have a work mastered or things like that. And that's why like writing about our feelings and like coming back to our heart center is like something that is essential, until we understand that it's like just being first and being in God, and then it's feeling our feelings, and action actually comes last, because it's the internal that is a priority first. And I think that's what most of us are releasing from like our past lives or our families, is that priority and that focus put on the external. I know that for me, like my parents sometimes don't understand that just like sitting and holding space and just like running everywhere, always doing something. It just like it has its importance too. And for example, I can give an example for my parents. Like if they don't really like my apartment, for example, and they want me to move, but I still feel that there's purpose there, and I still feel that there's a mission to love here. And so I would say like moving takes a lot of energy, and that's something that they wouldn't understand, or that they aren't ready, an insight that they aren't ready to receive right now. But it's true, like there is a part of your mission that is just loving. And you can't avoid this. And it does take a bit of energy, and it does take presence, and it does take sitting with your feelings and meditating to kind of like hold space for even your environment. You know what I mean? Same thing with like your life purpose. Well, you don't have a career that you want just yet, but you still have to go through loving your current job fully. And that's something that I learned recently. Until you can transcend it. And you don't necessarily find like your golden nugget in the next job. Sometimes it's just like a bit of healing that is required, instead of like being constantly upset with your situation and feeling like you just want to get the hell out of there. Yeah. So yeah, that's just like an example of how it like there's a lot of energy required with just being, and being with God, and holding space. And I think when most divine feminines will learn how important it is, like society as a whole will be like much more healed and much more at peace, because we recognize the value in just being ourselves. Any other insights on the sermon? How do you feel like we're coming to the end of the discussion? Yeah, felt complete. All right, then this has been a nice discussion, very healing. Thank you to you ladies for this conversation, and thank you for everyone who's watched it, either live or on YouTube. If you really like this discussion and want to see more, don't forget to please like and subscribe, and also share this discussion with your relatives and close ones. And yeah, we'll see you next Sunday for the next Sunday service and after church tea time. Bye-bye. Thank you.